Thank you for listening to another episode of Faces of Our Cities. I'm your host, Jesse. We are with James Barry. James and I met, I think, on LinkedIn. If I remember correctly, he was one of the very first people, like 6 months ago, that I was just kind of reaching out and looking at. He was super energetic on the platform, and I was like, this guy seems interesting. I'm gonna follow and I'm gonna see if I can convince him to talk to me because I just want to be surrounded by people with that kind of energy. And he also was just saying a lot of things that just resonated. And as someone who is new to doing full-time sales, I guess having a label as being someone in sales, the things that he was saying really just hit home for me, and I was learning a lot from what he had to say. So James, thank you so much for hopping on this.
Yeah, Jesse, I appreciate that. I mean, you had the same energy I had, and that's why when you reached out to me, I was like, "Yeah, let's talk," because that is, one of the things in just sales and in life in general. It's, saying yes to a lot of opportunities that come across, especially earlier on in your career or just life. If people want to talk, why not? You never know where it's going to go.
Yeah, no, definitely. And, we talk a lot about how time is money, right? And so I know that honestly, like you giving me just this little bit of time of your day is a big deal. And I think that when you connect with people that understand that, they also are realizing, oh, this person's giving me their time. That that's a big deal. I'll be sure not to waste it today. James, help me understand. I know that you used to be an entrepreneur. Am I thinking beer,
Close. It
right? Didn't you
It
have,
was
did
it
you,
was mead. So
or
so yeah,
wine?
so honey wine. So alcohol made from honey. Yeah, I was an entrepreneur for about a year, at least for that venture. Pursued it and ended up shutting it down towards the end of 2019. Turns out it's really hard to succeed in the alcohol industry or the CPG space in general, and I just decided it's not what I wanted to spend the next 5 years of my life doing. So yeah, that was definitely an adventure. If I could go back in time and do it, I would do it way, way differently. I know that you were talking about like you want this podcast to be full of takeaways. So I think my biggest takeaway from just being an entrepreneur, or at least trying to be an entrepreneur, I guess there's no real difference. Like if you try, you are, was that I think I was a little bit too optimistic, and I would rather have focused more on like solving the immediate problem in front of me versus kind of dreaming about what could happen. I think a lot of people get caught up in dreams, and realistically, like entrepreneurship is just about doing whatever the next thing is to get you along a certain path. And for a lot of people, that's just selling something or just making a little bit of a profit or like attending an event and getting the word out. And, for us, like it was a lot of effort to like build a company from scratch. And while we had big dreams and we did execute on a fair amount of dreams, um, wish we had executed like a little bit more before I would say taking the plunge to be like, all right, we're quitting our jobs. We're going to go pursue this full time. Definitely could have kept the job a little bit longer and pursued it on the side.
Were there any preconceived ideas of what you thought about being an entrepreneur that once you really got into the thick of it, quit your job and started doing it, either it was either fulfilled like exactly what you thought it would be like, or it was completely opposite? Any thoughts around that?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I did not expect, but I will literally remember forever, is that once you quit your job to pursue any type of idea, at least if you're me or like most other entrepreneurs, you will literally think about that every single day, 24/7, when you wake up to when you go to sleep. Because you're like, I just quit my job to start this, and I really don't want this to fail. So I'm going to do everything I possibly can to do to make it work. That was definitely a lot, and like it's because I put all my eggs in one basket. And look, for some people that works out, for most people it doesn't. Statistically, small businesses fail, like often, a lot. Like if you start a small business, you're probably gonna fail. So I think not putting all my eggs in one basket is definitely something, a lesson that I learned to appreciate. And like today, when I think about entrepreneurship, I think about it more around like creating something, creating anything. Like if you create a YouTube channel, if you start a podcast, you are in a way, you're an entrepreneur. And there's no reason that you can't do that while also maintaining a job or doing something else where, you're keeping your options open in the event that something doesn't work out.
Yeah. That's a really great point. I think it's fair for us to talk about that. Uh, Entrepreneurship isn't just eating peanut butter and jelly and hustling for 10 years, barely making it, failing like a bunch of times until you finally make it. It's about having a mindset that chases ideas, comes up with new ideas, and tests them, right? At the same time, I could be wrong on this, but maybe we should start using business owner for people who aren't changing a business model or chasing an idea. They just want to be a business owner and run the company versus work for somebody. And because oftentimes we think about like, oh, like you're an entrepreneur, you started a fruit stand,
Yeah.
right? But it's the same fruit stand on every corner. Does that make you an entrepreneur? I don't know. Maybe it
It
does.
it does
I'm not the one here to make the
it does
judge.
actually make you an entrepreneur and it makes you a business owner. What it does not make you is a startup. So, a startup, my definition, and I'm pretty sure this is the standard definition, is a type of company that is looking for product market fit. That is their goal. So, a lot of the big startups that you hear about that were really successful, they were so successful because they disrupted an industry. You can think of a lot of common examples like Airbnb. They spent forever searching for a product market fit. Uber, also product market fit. But say like you're going to do what I did and like, open another alcohol company, that's not that's not a startup. Like yes, it can be depending upon how you approach it, but realistically, alcohols exist forever. People like it. There is a product market fit out there. So really you're yes, you are an entrepreneur, but you're not necessarily a startup. And that's something where I had those ideas conflated a little bit.
I see. I see. So, and probably a startup would definitely be, yeah, like you said, something that it just changes the way that business is or that business model, right? There's just something different about it versus kind of already taking the cookie cutter template and just changing the recipe of your mead. That's not the same as being a startup in an industry that's disrupting something.
Yeah.
So
I mean, and currently, like, I do work for you can call it a startup. It's a recruitment consultancy. We're bringing a new model to the market, which pretty much kind of serves as like an embedded talent team for other startups to help them run their hiring process. And it's not a very common model. So, as the person who's kind of, my boss likes to call me the tip of the spear on sales because I need to literally figure everything out. I'm the person who need to sell this model from scratch. And we've iterated on it a lot of different times. And that is kind of what being an entrepreneur is. And when I talked about at the very beginning about like solving problems, that is a lot about what being at a startup is. And it's not like, yes, you need to think about like the whole picture and the whole strategy. Our company's just at the point where we have a product market fit. So now we're thinking more long term. But before then, it's kind of like, what problem do you have in front of you and how do you solve it? Is it getting your first client? Is it getting your second client? Is it fixing your pricing model? And just if you solve enough problems, you'll eventually get to a product market fit, or you will realize that you don't have a product market fit and your idea will fail, which is which happens. It happens way more than people like to talk about it because nobody likes talking about failure. Nobody's out there going on the How I Built This podcast or any other podcasts. Oh, apart from maybe this one. And I'm sure there are out there, but like you just don't hear about people talking about failure that much. It's not that interesting of a story, unfortunately, because it's so common. Um, but you still
yeah.
don't hear it.
Right, right. Although, I mean, it is kind of interesting. I mean, I think it's like insanely interesting to hear how like the mistakes that like a company made that like you would normally not think like that could have been the make or break it,
Yeah.
right? And likely most startups and entrepreneurs also didn't think like that their speed to like figuring out their product market just took too long, and who would have thought that that was going to be the thing that ended it, right? Or just or who you lended from. was going to be, what ended it for you. So I enjoy failure because I've always enjoyed learning, which makes me very terrified of ever being an entrepreneur or business owner, because I'll be like, this is great. We keep
Yeah.
failing. We're learning so much.
I mean, it's this mindset that you have to have. And it's like, number one, I think by starting this podcast, in a way, it's like that's an entrepreneurial venture. You might not make money off of it. You might not get to like a million listeners or a million downloads. I don't know how people, talk about it, but it is building this muscle of failing. And I think that's one of the things that was underappreciated by me initially, was that yes, you can have a big idea, you can go out, you can try and do it, but realistically, if you aren't already, I would say, adept is not the word I'm looking for, but it's one that comes to mind. If you aren't experienced with like building stuff from scratch and failing and iterating, it's going to be really hard to do it your first time and like do it well. And that's why for me, whenever I set like a new goal, I'm still at this point in my life where I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to figure life out. There's so many potential things to do out there that if I start thinking about something new to do, I'm like, I literally just want to complete it. Like whether or not it's building something, writing an article, starting a podcast, and like just the act of doing it will get me a lot further than other people. Like you talk about all the small businesses that fail. You can also talk about all the people who like have dreamed of starting a podcast and recorded one and then given up. The numbers would astound
Right.
you.
Right. Oh, for sure. Right. I mean, all the advice from podcasters, right? It, just as an example, are just start, right? Like, because it takes so much just to get to that point. I remember thinking this is more information than you care about, or maybe our listeners even care about, but um, gosh, 6 years, 7 years ago, I attempted to cross Lake Michigan on a paddleboard, and it at its widest point at 88 miles, and no one had ever done it before, and I had just set it on my mind and my heart that I was going to do it. Uh, It's funny though, because my later on someone helped me see where I failed, and that was that I had set a goal of trying, not completing.
Mhm.
I said I want to be the first one to even try to do this, and it the amount of, like, I guess, stupidity that it took just to get down to the beach at 5 a.m. that morning and step onto the board and start paddling, was for me enough, right? I was like, holy cow, I did it. Holy cow, I didn't miss my alarm. I actually did it. There's a support boat. Holy cow, wow, and then so, long,
Yeah, how
fast
far did you
forward
get?
17 hours later, I got 48 miles, right? So I got a little over halfway, and then we almost died and fought a storm for like 6 hours, and it was nuts.
You got
Um,
48
but
miles? I thought you were going to be like, I went 2 miles and realized this was an awful idea. You not only
I think
tried, but you got past the halfway point. That is like getting
for
past the
sure,
halfway point is a huge accomplishment.
without a doubt, right? Just to get your feet on the board, just to like start your first one, recorded, edited, right? And then set it up just to do,
Mhm.
right? And that was one thing I think too in my a few years back when I looked at my strength finders results. One of the strengths that I didn't have that I was really annoyed about was that I wasn't an activator. I was a strategist and an ideator, like all these great things, but it always seemed like I got to the point where when it's go time, I'm like, let's keep thinking about
Yeah.
it. And so I get it. Like when you say like, it's you just gotta start. You gotta do it, and like even no matter how big it is, it's like it's important to you, and it's something that I think as an entrepreneur, you gotta build on just that experience up of like executing and delivering
Yeah.
on small little
And
things.
it's also like you got to set your expectations properly and like understand kind of what you're getting yourself into and like what is like the bottom case scenario of what you want to achieve. So, like, you're like assuming I do everything correctly and I get there, like, what is going to make me happy? And like, so for example, like it's December 14th today, I'm pretty sure. A lot of people are hitting that, like, we're almost at the end of the year. Did I do my New Year's resolution or not? For me, my New Year's resolution was to write 52 articles and publish them this year. That was it. I published my 47th article yesterday, so I have 5 more to go. And yeah, sorry, I was doing the math in my head. That's 5 more. And like, I'm so close to being done. I like launched a newsletter. I have like 14 subscribers. Half of them are my family members. And like, I wrote an article yesterday and I was like, look, like, it's not like a giant impressive like achievement that I just accomplished. Like, yes, I wrote 52 articles. Some of them are like pretty good. A lot of them are average. But what I did do is I wrote 52 articles and I built a blog and I got a habit of writing developed. And like at the end of the day, that's kind of where you need to like set your goals. And it's like that was my goal. My goal is not to grow newsletter subscribers. My goal was not to like have a lot of people read my articles. It was to develop a habit of writing. And that is why I'm like, look, I'm content with reaching my goal because I didn't set it like high enough. And like, so for example, if you're going to start a podcast that you're doing right now, like the goal is really just like to do it and learn how to build a podcast, then you're going to forever have that ability to go out and do that. You can be like, look, I did it. Nobody's going to be like, well, how many downloads did it get? Like, yeah, if you got 1 million, that's awesome. But if you did it, period, that's also awesome and more than other people.
Right, right. No, exactly. It's also for me, um it's about showing and practicing discipline.
Mm,
I was thinking about this, right? Like I love these conversations. I do not love what comes after the recording of a podcast, right? And having been a producer, I've done all of that stuff, but I've also never been on this side of the podcast where I'm actually talking, right? And doing the interview. But for me it's a big part of it is proving that you can do things that you don't like as if you just absolutely loved them. I think it was like it's a quote from like Mike Tyson that he's like, discipline is doing something you hate like you love it. And I heard that like 4 months ago, and I was like, that's it. That's me working out.
yeah.
I'm gonna start working out, pretending I love it. I'm gonna do
Yeah.
abs. Like, and it's kind of funny now. I actually love doing abs. I mean, you can't tell, but it's being able, like what you did with writing 52 articles, or as you
Yeah.
will. Yes, you created a routine, but you disciplined yourself into executing on something even if you didn't feel like doing it. And I think discipline is not only a term that's confused about like what it means and what it looks like, but it's also very underrated, right? I think like if we looked at like the things that we want people to be able to do, I don't doubt that having discipline is in like the top 7, but I feel like it should be in like the top 2,
Yeah.
you know?
I
So,
mean, it's this idea of like consistency or discipline. And I feel like if you talk to anybody who was in the armed services, it's like, what you get? And it's like the best thing I got was discipline. And in a way, discipline is also, at least from my experience, yes, discipline is helpful, but it's more the confidence and the knowledge that if I put my mind to something, like I can do it, whether or not it's waking up at 5 a.m. every day, or if it's just working out 2 days a week, whatever it might be. And I think having that confidence, at least for me, like I'm thinking about what am I going to do in 2022? I don't know. And for me this year, I'm not going to write 52 articles again. I'm going to write some number of articles, but it's like that's definitely not going to be like my New Year's resolution. I enjoy writing, but I'm never going to be like a writer. So as I think about what I'm going to do next year, like I'm taking it a lot more seriously because I know whatever I pick, I'm going to have to commit to. Because now I have like a 1 year streak of hitting my New Year's resolution, and whatever I do next, like I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm going to take it a lot more seriously because I know I have the discipline to accomplish it. So there's no excuse not to do it.
how did you become disciplined like that? Or some tips for people who are wanting to like develop a routine like that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different things that you can do to develop routines. So, the first off, I would recommend reading the book Atomic Habits. Like, that is the book that convinced me to start writing. Like, that is like the best, most like usable summary of like starting new habits in your life. And writing, for example, is a habit that I've ever come across. And it is the book where I was like, you know what? It's not that hard to become a writer. I just need to do these things that are outlined in the book. And like that's why it's probably to date one of my favorite, if not my favorite books. It's without a doubt my favorite self-help book.
Okay, what book was that again?
Atomic Habits by James Clear. You
A ton.
Once you read it, you'll start seeing it mentioned a lot more often. It's just the writer is able to break down how you build tiny, like people always talk about, oh, just make a 1% improvement every single day. And it's like, yeah, but like, how do I do that? And like, he's the one who, but I hate when people do that. People are like, follow your passion. And like they do it in sales all the time. It's like, talk to them like they're your friend. It's like, go to where your prospects are. People always tell you like, do these things, but they never tell you how to do it. And like, that's the thing with him, is he actually tells you how to do it. And then, at least for me, before I committed to like launching a blog, I spent like 3 months just writing in a giant Google document. It's probably like 100 pages long, just about like random things. And it's I think part of it was, number one, I made sure I kind of knew what I was getting myself into before I did it. Number two, I relaxed my standards and like focused on what I wanted to accomplish, which was writing 52 articles. And like, yeah, I had like a weekly publishing kind of habit going for the first 3 months, and then I got sidetracked by some stuff and I fell behind. But like, I didn't let that stop me. And again, I like, you want to put the goal like as something attainable and not something that is just like unattainable and you're just gonna give up your hands, be like, I can't do it anymore. And so like, if you want to lose weight, like, yeah, you want to like go to the gym, but like, I don't know, if I were going to make a weight loss goal, I'd just try and be like, all right, I want to have 180 active days, whatever the definition of that is, per year. Maybe it's 5,000 steps as an active day. Like, that is a super attainable goal, and it is like a base to build all your other habits off of.
That was so much more than I was expecting you to say. I was totally expecting you to be like, well, pick a time of the day and set a reminder on your alarm clock. So
That
thank you so much for
that
that.
didn't work. That doesn't work for me. I don't know. There's a lot of things out there about like goal setting. I don't know how to set goals properly. But like, I know what worked for me. And like, again, I'm just gonna, if people want to like set goals, go read Atomic Habits. It's what helped me set my own goals. Like, that's the best I can offer.
Cool. That's awesome. Well, thank you. I'll take that. I think that's really valuable. If people want to connect to you, should they do it the same way I did? You know,
Late
through LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, just Google James Barry. I'll probably come up. I post there somewhat frequently whenever I think I have something valuable to
Cool.
post. And yeah, I love talking to new people, love new ideas. So feel free to reach out to me.
And then the last thing, if we can just find out the name of your blog, I feel like
Oh,
I wanna go check this out. Is that up for
of
grabs, or you're
of
like,
course,
no, that
no
is actually only for family
promise on the
members?
article. Some of them are quality. I actually have like a high quality section. And I was looking at it yesterday. I'm like, these are actually, these are pretty good articles. But then there's a bunch of them where I'm like, I'm not proud of them. That said, we're getting to 52. The blog is James Barry, my name, .xyz. So jamesberry.com was already taken, so I went for the XYZ URL. And yeah, feel free to go browse around.
Cool. Well, awesome. Thanks, James. I really appreciate your time and all your insight. So thank you.
Thanks, Jesse. Thanks for inviting me. Really appreciate it.